Hi everybody, welcome. This is Grace Flow and Ease live on the web, and we're here today with a great panel. This is going to be an exciting topic, but for those of you who are watching us for the first time, I'm Cheryl Dodd Baldwin.
And I'm Mary Ellen Finnerty, and together we wrote the book, Living with Grace, Flow, and Ease.
Yes, and so these shows are all about just that, what brings more grace, flow, and ease into our lives, because living with grace, flow, and ease really is a lifestyle, and it's about what makes life fun and good for all of us. And today we're going to be talking about how did we get here, and it's a topic that I've invited Edie Weinstein and Joan French to be here with us, and I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves. So Joan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, ladies. It's good to be here. So yes, my name is Joan French. I've been an educator for over 35 years. I've worked with kids with severe disabilities and the normal range of children in elementary through middle school. I've worked overseas in international schools, and right now I'm retired and working in an EDD program at the University of Delaware. So
Great.
That's me.
Great.
Edie, welcome back. We've had
Thank
you
you.
before. We loved having you. Our viewers loved having you.
Thank you.
And I keep using Edie's thing, and I know other people have said it to us too, instead of the now what to now what. Like it's just the next thing, and that has stuck with me. So thank you.
My pleasure. I am a licensed social worker. I'm an interfaith minister. I'm what I call a colorfully creative journalist, and I write for a number of different venues. I'm also a radio host, so I'm comfortable on both sides of the microphone. And I call myself an optimistic who sees the world through the eyes of possibility. So with this topic that we're going to be discussing today, I think we're going to have a lot of different ideas about what's possible. So I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for asking me to join you again.
Thank you both for being here. And then we're
Thank
also
you.
going to
Thank
have
you.
our favorite nutrition educator, Rachel. She's here in the kitchen with us, and she'll be preparing a wonderful kiwa salad for us in just a little while. So before I get in the topic, though, I want to do just a couple of housekeeping things. And if I look distracted, I'm really not. It's just I'm the camera person. So I'm also monitoring things that are going on here as well. And if you'll notice on the right-hand side of your screen, I think it's on your right-hand side, there is a place where you can chat. Now, typically, people are very shy on these, but please don't be shy. Chime right in. We're also looking for our future broadcasts that we're going to be able to actually let people speak live. So I'm excited about that new change that's coming.
So let us know you're here.
Yeah, let us know you're here. Say where you're from. And to get started, let me just tell you how we came on this topic today. Last month, there was a news story about a couple in Baltimore that was reprimanded because they let their two children walk to the neighborhood park. And they were seriously reprimanded. It was the police got involved, Child Protective Services got involved. It was not just a little minor incident of, oh, you shouldn't do that. And it struck me because when I was growing up, and even when my children were small, it was go outside and play. You know, you can't be in the house, go outside and play. And now we've gone to this whole other extreme, and my question was, how did we get here? How did we get to this place of it's not safe? And in fact, if it's not safe and you do it, you're in serious trouble, and you're really questioned as a parent. The integrity of yourself as a parent, that hits the core of the heart, because we all want to be good parents, and then to think we're being judged for not being a good parent because we let our child go out and play. I was perplexed and really had this question, how did we get here? Are we really on this major slippery slope?
As a society.
As a society, yeah. So I invited these two women to come and join the conversation with us and
Share their perspective.
Share their perspective of where we are, because if we're living in the world of grace, flow, and ease, and follow your bliss and positive thinking, how do you bring all this together? And so let's talk a little bit first, and please hear us here. We're not judging this couple. We're not making a judgment call on whether they should have done this or shouldn't have done this. It's just as a discussion of how things are, how it was when we were little versus how we're hearing it is now, and what's happening in education, just the whole thing. We're just having a chat about it. And we had the opportunity to have a quick lunch with each other before we did this and came on the air, and we had a great chat over lunch. So I know it will continue here. So, Joan, what are your thoughts? So let's just all jump in.
Just from our chatting and my thoughts, when you say, how did we get here? If we talk about women are working more outside the home, I think we've been very concerned. Your first concern is, are your children safe? And we've implemented things to support kids, whether it's daycare, before and after care. But that's also grown into parents on the other end of the spectrum being more helicopter parents, where every minute of their child's life is monitored and scheduled and supervised and observed. And so somewhere along the line, another group of parents brought up this philosophy, like, hey, when I was a kid, I was allowed to ride my bike a mile or two from home. And it got coined free range parenting. And it's really, two ends of the spectrum maybe that we would hope we could all meet in the middle. And when you talk to either, or you look at what's happening with either end of the spectrum, it's about children being safe. I'm not sure, and I'm going to turn that over to Edie.
Thank you. Well, the four of us grew up approximately the same generation. I grew up in Willingboro, New Jersey, which was one of the original Levittown communities, Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. And this was in the 1960s. So my day in the summer looked like getting on my bicycle, saying goodbye to my mom, and trotting off with my sister. And we'd go to the pool, we'd come home for lunch. We'd check in, but my parents never worried about where we were. They always knew that we were either at the pool or at someone's house. Now, that was way before the days of cell phones,
Right.
but they knew that there was a kind of a finite potential series of places that we could be, and they always checked on us.
We were still dialing phones.
Yes, absolutely. And I still remember my phone number growing up. So there was that. There was a sense of community that the parents looked after the kids, that our parents knew that when they sent us out, or when we sent ourselves out to go play, that we were somewhere safe. Now, I'm not saying that there are more predators now than there were then. We're just more vocal about it now.
Yeah.
So I think there was that. The other thing we were joking about is, and this is something that we grew up with as well, in the summertime, was the mosquito trucks, is what we would call them.
Yeah.
And they would be spewing DDT out to get rid of the mosquitoes, and we would be riding our bikes in the wake of this. Yep. So I say that explains a lot about my thought processes in my brain. But I think there was a sense of it takes a village to raise a child. And as responsible adults, whether or not we're parents, it is our job to, as best we can, secure the welfare of children that we witness, whether they're personally in our lives or somebody we see, a kid we see on the street.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, when I was thinking about, we, as children, we went full out on the, riding bikes for miles and playing. I grew up in Houston, Texas. Now, you would think Houston, Texas wasn't a safe place. And but we were taught, this is the other thing we were talking about, we were taught what to do if someone approaches. We were told, I'm going to move because I think I'm out of the camera here, but we were told not to talk to strangers. We were told if someone, my mother always told me, if someone approaches you and tries to do anything, you run, you go tell someone, and you get their license plate number. It's okay, thank you. It'll show the refrigerator if we change it. So in that worked, because there actually was a man who pulled up in a van one day when I was walking down the street and was, wanting me to come over to his truck. He had some candy for me or something. Well, I had already been warned about that kind of thing. So I immediately started running, saying, leave me alone. And I got his license plate number and gave that to my mother, and they actually caught the guy, and he had been doing that. So as a child, we were, quote, street smart in some way. Now, street smart then is far different than street smart today, for sure. Because I think there is, first of all, there's just a whole lot more people.
Mm.
Second of all, there seems to be more prevalence of gun toting and different things than there was. But the other thing is, by research, it says that, and I did some looking at this on the internet to see if I could get some information, and all the things that were cited keep coming back to the same information, which is that really the incidence of violence against children has been declining since
Thankfully.
2003.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're hearing about more violent, explosive, tragic episodes like school shootings
Mhm.
and things like that. But as far as incidents that are being reported,
Mhm.
and maybe that's the other caveat, that are being reported, that seems to be declining.
Mhm.
But someone said, I can't remember who said it, but with cell phones, with cell phones and with instant reporting and news availability. Remember when news was a big deal after Kennedy was assassinated? I was younger than that, and so you didn't have news coverage the way you have news
Right.
coverage now.
And it goes over and over again, whatever the situation is. It kind of breeds an environment of fear, and you can't blame parents if that's what you're hearing all
Right.
day, or whenever you turn on the radio, something bad is happening, and we all want to protect our family and especially our children. So, that could be part of this picture as to how we got here.
Right.
I was thinking about these parents in particular, and what I've read is they actually train their children. They did experimental things, extending the distance from where the children were allowed to be and getting back home. The police understood the situation after they were involved. I just think there's another side to fear. There's a side of, being very cautious and very preemptive and very overprotective. And then there's this other side. And we want our kids to grow up and be independent. We're in schools, you hear it all the time. Kids have to be great members of the team. They have to think out of the box. They have to think for themselves. Well, if we're managing every moment of a child's time and not giving them the opportunity to learn or preparing them with skills to go out there and play at the baseball diamond down the street and be safe, what are we doing there? So.
Yes, and I'm also thinking at the same time, there really are some neighborhoods where it just is not safe, I believe,
I would agree.
with the gunfire on the street and that kind of thing, where there's other things that are happening in the neighborhood, for sure. But it seems that in that particular neighborhood, that was considered a safe neighborhood, the kids had been taught how to cross the street. They knew how to take care of themselves, that kind of thing. So then we'd start questioning how much of this is fear and how much is reality.
And do we want our children to grow up being afraid? When we were young, we were taught, don't talk to strangers. However, my contention is everybody we now know and love was once a stranger. So the rule with my son was, when he was very young, is to say, it's okay to talk to strangers as long as you're with an adult that you trust. Whether it's us, or grandparents, or the parents of friends, that's how you get to know people.
Right.
And we also had a rule about holding hands crossing the street, that we would always do that. Look both ways. I mean, my parents taught us, look both ways before you cross the street. Hold hands when you cross the street or a parking lot. This past week, I was in New Orleans with some friends that had two small children, a 4-year-old girl and an 8-year-old girl. And our rule was they were running ahead of us, but when they got to the street corner, they had to stop, wait for an adult to take hands on either side. They would hold each other's hands in the middle. We'd make a game out of it.
Right.
We'd look both ways. We'd cross the street. And then if they wanted to let go, once we got to the other side, that was fine. So I agree with what you're saying, Joan, is that educating children, and I call it empowerment parenting too, because we're empowering our children to be independent people. And the difference between smother love, if you want to call it that, or helicopter parenting, and what these parents are doing is miles apart. When I went to kindergarten, my mother told me the story that I didn't know about till much later. I was 6 years old when I went to kindergarten, and our school was 4 blocks away from where I lived. The first day of school, my mother held my hand, walked me to school, dropped me off, and went back home. The second day, I did it on my own, or so I thought.
Mm.
She was following a block or two behind me
Sure.
to make sure that I got there.
Right.
And then after that, after the second day, she was able to let go. But there were crossing guards. There were
Mhm.
other children around.
Yes.
I wasn't there totally on my own,
Right.
but she allowed the kite string to go out.
Right.
And it sounds like that's what these parents were doing. When I first heard the story, I thought, oh, I don't know, a 10-year-old watching a 6-year-old, that's a little scary. That's a big responsibility
Mhm.
for the older child. But then as I heard you talking about it, the parents didn't just drop them off and say,
Right.
okay, go fend for yourselves,
Mhm.
like kicking a baby bird out of a nest, that they prepared their children.
Mhm.
So I've changed my mind about it. I feel a little bit better about it.
Well,
So yeah.
in moving the context, if we're talking about kids in poverty, I think kids have there's a lot more challenges for those kids, and they are expected. Older siblings are expected to take care of younger siblings at a much younger age.
Mhm.
They probably have what some might view as a sense of freedom or free range, but yet there's a necessity there, and perhaps they're in the neighborhood and other people are watching, or maybe they are home alone because of the circumstances of their family. So, you know, there are lots of ways that kids can be empowered, or there's different expectations, and it may be an economic issue, and it may be, you know, just a personal preference. I'm not sure, but I think in a different context, this might be completely normal. And just
Right.
what you were saying, as far as, you know, there are some neighborhoods where you don't want your child out, but there are kids, young kids, walking in these dangerous neighborhoods and hopefully keeping themselves safe with their siblings and
Yeah.
getting home safely,
Right.
alone, and staying alone for long periods.
The other thing that I think contributes here is that, you know, when we were growing up, there were more stay-at-home moms,
Mm-hmm.
and we understood, you know, the whole thing of it takes a village to raise
Yes.
a child. We all looked out for each other. Even when my children were growing up, while they were out in a particular area, free within that area. They still checked in, but there were also mothers around that I can call and say, we called each other frequently. Have you seen my kid? You know, or somebody would call and say, hey, did you know, your son is here, or whatever. And and that was great. We looked out for each other. Rachel brought up the thing about what did they call it, Rachel?
The neighborhood watch.
The
Neighborhood
block
watch.
parents,
Yeah,
the
block
neighborhood
parent.
watch, yeah.
And it was a poem. It was a
The
picture
helping
of a
hand
helping
is what we
hand.
called it. My parents had one in the front
Mhm.
window.
And I
Yeah.
had one in the front window, so that children on the block, if they needed anything, they needed a place that, like, if someone was bothering them, or they fell and got hurt, or whatever, or they needed to call their mom because there weren't cell phones
Mhm.
then, or they were just emerging at that time, then they could come to the house and they'd be okay. You know, they'd say, I need help. So we've lost that. In so many places, we don't even know who our neighbors are.
Yeah.
We're all so busy coming and going. We don't know our neighbors. We might see kids on the street, but we don't know where they belong or who goes with who. Now, our kids would know.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids could tell us, but as adults, and I'm thinking about myself, older now, where my children are grown, I don't know. I do on this block, but there's not that many children on this block.
I'm thinking about that since I've retired last July. I know more kids in my neighborhood now.
Yes.
And I know more parents, and I know the kids who stand and wait for the bus in front of my house. So that, I mean, I hope in a way I'm contributing, because I do have my eye out for the kids. But you're right. We're so busy, and if there are two parents in the household, they both have to be working to maintain the family's needs. So it's a struggle. And one of the things I learned in looking at this situation was involving the community again. There's another father who has a blog or a website about empowering children from Baltimore. And when he heard about this, he reacted with putting up the website. And other parents have come together and said, how can we do this? We want our kids to be independent, but we want our kids to be safe. And the advice was, work with your community organization, let them know you're trying to allow your child more freedom, and notify the police that this is the philosophy that you're engaging in, and get to know your neighbors, so that people, the person who reported this couple, we're not sure who knew what about the other, but I think if you got to know the parents of the two children, you would have thought, oh, that's,
Mhm.
they're not crazy. They're not negligent. They're just trying to give their kids some independence. So, but I think it's back to the village thing and reigniting our village conscience
Right.
that we're all responsible and we should all be helping and we should be vigilant. So,
Right.
yeah.
And then that brings up the thing, like what we were talking about at the table, which was about, in the grocery store,
Mhm.
when we see something,
Yeah.
it's, we have such fear in this country about repercussion, about suit and
And
you
people
know,
carry
being,
guns.
Yeah, being,
Yeah.
being harassed
Road
for
rage.
sticking our
Yeah.
nose where it doesn't
Mhm.
belong,
Mhm.
when really we're just trying to be
Mhm.
of a citizen. So it's a fine line. It's sticky.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I've had a couple of experiences with that. One, as I was telling you over lunch, about a year, maybe 2 years ago, I was in a store and I saw a mother threatening to hit her child. She's having a rough day, very frustrated. And I'm a licensed social worker, and I thought, do I go all social worker on her? And I said, no, I'm going to intervene, but I'm going to do it in a way that doesn't threaten the child once the mother takes her out of the store. Because if this is how she is with her in public, I wonder how she is with her in private. So I walked over to the mother. I said, you're really having a rough day, aren't you? And I said, I know you don't want to hurt your child. And the little girl was crying, and she couldn't tie her shoe, and the mother was getting annoyed with her about that. So I bent down and I tied the little girl's shoe and I said, here's how and like the little bunny rabbit ears and all that. And the little girl smiled a little bit, and the mother said, yeah, this is what's going on in my life. And I listened, and I was still feeling a little bristly, like, okay, how dare you do this? How dare you talk to your child like this? But I did it. I intervened in a way that protected the child as well. And the mother seemed to be relieved to have somebody that understood what was going on for her. So about a year later, I'm back in the same store, and the little girl is sitting in the shopping cart, and her face is painted, and she looks really, said, oh, it's beautiful, and I bet you had a good time having that done. And I said to her, and the mother didn't acknowledge that she knew me, and I said, you remember me? And the little girl kind of looked at the mother, looked at me, and went back and smiled and nodded a little bit. So that's one way that I intervened. Last week I was in another store and I saw a little, maybe 4-year-old girl wandering around the store, the toy department, carrying a box of, I forget, My Little Pony or something. I don't know what it was. And I'm looking around. I said, okay, but there's an adult attached to her somewhere. So I looked down the next aisle. I said, is this one yours? And the mother smiled. She said, oh yeah, she went to, and she didn't reprimand the child. She didn't yell at her, but she went over to her and she thanked me for keeping an eye out. And I said, I'm a mom. That's my job.
Yes.
I think that's it. That we just look out, and how do we, Matthew Fox, I don't know if you're familiar with his work. He wrote Creation Spirituality.
I love him.
He said, he says we're all creative by nature, that we are creative beings by nature. And that really, if we would all just transform our own little corner of the world in beauty and care, that it would make, if we all did that, then all the dots would connect,
Just
right?
ripple out.
It would ripple out. My corner would connect with your corner, and vice versa. And so I think that's it. How can we make a difference in our own little corner for the children and for each other in our communities? And to, with the whole thing of positive thinking and living your bliss and, grace, flow, and ease, it's focusing on what is good.
I think
And what does
sometimes,
work.
right. And for whatever reasons, there are times when the world seems to be upside down, or we look around and there just doesn't seem to be any integrity at all around us. I mean, it's just kind of like that with the way life is sometimes. But, I often think that then we just have to look within and bring out that integrity within us and stand in that. And just by doing that, we can hopefully hold the space for a much greater emergence of goodness and love and safety and
So it can be
joy.
in the grocery store. How can I make a difference here?
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes that answer might be, I think I better not do a thing. But for the most part, I think there is something we can do,
Mhm.
even if it's just breaking the energy by greeting the
Yes.
parent. I've done that before.
Wishing
where
the parent
I-
a good
a day,
or-
you know, or I
or-
haven't, I've just tried to break the attention from the tension
Mhm.
and just greet them and say, oh, aren't you cute, talking to the child, or, you know, I
Yeah.
love your outfit, or
Mhm.
just something to interrupt what was happening.
Mhm.
That way I haven't confronted
Right.
anybody. I've just broken the energy
Right.
somehow. And usually when I walk away, it's different. They
Right.
didn't go back to it.
Yes.
Right.
It got changed.
Yeah.
So it's all those little places. Mary and I were just on a trip, and I picked up the USA Today at the hotel. They gave us your morning paper, and I opened it up, and you know how synchronicity works.
Mhm.
There was this advertisement for a coin, and the coin was called the Three Graces. And I thought, ooh, what's that about? So they were saying the three graces, and the figures look very mythological, mythological. So I said, okay, I read further, what are the three graces? And the three graces were they were the daughters of Zeus, and they represented charm, beauty, and joy. And I thought, wow. You know, grace, flow, and ease is about synchronicity, but then the elements of beauty, charm, and joy, and they were also very much associated with the arts, with music and whatnot. So the goddesses were Aglaia, the goddess that symbolized beauty, Euphrosyne, the goddess of delight, and Thalia, the goddess of blossom. And so then others have called it charm, beauty, and joy. And I thought, wow, just those three elements. If we could just bring those three elements back, because so my question was,
to daily
have we lost these three graces? And in some ways, I could say, yeah. In a lot of ways, we've lost them, depending on where we focus, right? But it was like, no, I want to call these back.
Right.
I want to call these three graces back into my life. So that made a lot of sense. So part of it is, how do I transform my corner with beauty, charm, and I guess how would you also say charm? Charm is about it's not like
Tact, maybe tactfulness,
Charisma, or being engaging, drawing people in, magnetizing certain people. Every day I set an intention, same one, and I add some things to it, but at least this one is that I'm calling into my life amazing people and extraordinary experiences, and every day I do, whether it's face to face or in cyberspace, however you want to look at it. And I know that there's always a choice. We may not always have a choice about what comes at us, but we have a choice about what we give back to the situation.
True.
And when we forget this stuff, I call it spiritual amnesia.
Oh,
We just,
nice.
yeah. So we just need to remind ourselves, and that's what we're all here with each other, is reminding ourselves that this beauty and grace hasn't gone anywhere. We just have the blinders on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we
Take 'em
have
off.
to remember.
It's always there.
Yes. It's like the light. The light is always there, whether we see it or not.
Yes. So I guess in summation, it would be if we could perhaps step beyond some of the fear and step into integrity. Part of charm, I think, also is just being having some manners,
Diplomacy.
civility, diplomacy, just being polite, being treating each other with some courtesy
Yes.
and some thoughtfulness is part of that as well. Instead of some of the rude reactions and kind of things. So that if we bring into our own corner, which is the world around me, if I bring into the corner beauty, grace, beauty, charm, and joy, and just focusing on integrity and what's important to me and what brings beauty, I'm in for that conversation.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we can help a lot of people in that way.
That's being the change in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
We want to
Yes.
see.
Definitely.
And if it's what we're back to the subject of children, children watch everything. I was listening to Dr. Dan Gottlieb on WHYY. I listened to Voices in the Family, and he said something that made so much sense. And I've thought about it before, but not quite this way. Children are like tofu. They absorb everything that, like tofu has no flavor. They absorb everything that they're soaked in. Children are like tofu. That, what the atmosphere, the environment that they're living in, they soak up. So imagine, as role models for children, how do we want them to treat each other? How do we want our children, for raising sons, how do we want them to treat their partners? If we're raising daughters, how do we want them to treat their partners, or vice versa, being treated by a partner? How do we want them to be in the world? We better be living it ourselves, because that's what integrity is for me, is living my values, walking the talk. And if we want children to be safe out in the world, we need to teach them how to be safe within, with their own feelings. With, as an educator, you've seen this. As a therapist, I've seen this. That I work with an awful lot of wounded adults who didn't learn that growing up. That life in the world were not safe places. And whether we are free-range parents or helicopter parents, in order to have our children be safe, we need to teach them to be safe within themselves. So I think that's part of our role as educators and as parents, grandparents, friends of small children. That's our job.
Okay. Thank you. So for those of you that are watching, we're going to go to Rachel and
Speaking of tofu.
You're gonna make something
spend
tofu?
some time with Rachel here. But stay tuned, because we're also we have a video for you at the end, and then we're going to come back again for any last minute thoughts after the video. So stay tuned, but we are going to do a quick camera change. We don't have camera people here. We don't have multiple cameras. So we're going to do a quick camera change. So just bear with us as we do that. So, here we go.
Black it out.
Well, if I'm like, you're going to be blacked out here for just a moment. Because they'll say, wait a minute, you blacked us out. Watch. Okay, I'm going to come around this way. Watch. Yeah, you want to get dizzy? Okay. It'll be okay, because I can move that whole table. There you go. And Mary, can you bring that microphone over here?
Sure.
Okay.
There we go. So, Rachel, do I need to come up? Because
I'm a little tall, so let's bring it up a little.
What do I do with this?
How's that, Rachel?
Good.
Can you see good?
Yeah.
Okay, is that good?
Do you want to put the microphone here?
Or is it
Is
right
it too
down this
close?
corner?
Or I move the quinoa here.
Here you go.
What about this?
Good now?
Mary, you turned off the mic.
I didn't.
There
Are
we
we
go.
having a repeat of last
No.
month, right? Never mind.
Okay, Rachel, so you have kiwa salad, is that right?
We're gonna do a quinoa, a spring quinoa tabbouleh. If one of you wants to join me in the kitchen, you're more than welcome to. Would you like to?
I'd
Okay.
be glad to.
So we're gonna do something. Mary and Cheryl had asked me to speak about grains of the season.
Mhm.
You know, we're getting into spring season. We have a lot of vegetables and herbs that hopefully we're planting. Finally, the cold weather, I'm gonna knock on wood.
Yeah.
Cold weather has passed, and we're now getting into things in the garden growing, like radishes, and we're just starting to plant the pepper seeds and eventually transport them over to the gardens. Same with tomatoes. So we're going to talk about a few of those things we're going to put in, but we're also going to focus on the grains. My favorite grain, probably any time of year, is the quinoa, and I'll talk about that in a second. But we also have things growing like bulgur wheat. Lots of the wheats are being grown right now.
Mhm.
Millet is a seed that's often used for birds. It's actually used in bird feed, but also very good to cook and use in food. So oats, this is also the time of year we grow oats. For those that are, I know there's many gluten-free people out there right now. If you're using oats, make sure you're using a gluten-free oat, because they can be traced in the same factories and stuff like that. Bulgur wheat would obviously be a gluten product, but quinoa is not. Quinoa is a gluten-free product. So quinoa is also, so I have a little note here because I wanted to make sure I have mine on my little cell phone, speaking of some of these technology generations we were talking about a little earlier. So quinoa, and I have so this is the grain right here. I'll show you a little. I don't know if you can see that. I'm using a rainbow quinoa. You can also do the white, you can do the brown separate. to me, this is prettier.
Yeah,
So when you
this is
serve it
awesome.
to a party or a group of people,
Mhm.
it's gorgeous. But the quinoa is actually, most people think quinoa is part of the cereal family. It's kind of like oats, but it's actually not part of the cereal family. It's part of the pseudo cereal is what they call it. It's more closely related to beetroot, amaranth, and spinach family.
Wow.
And surprisingly, yeah. And again, it is considered and tumbleweed is considered. So it's beetroot, spinach, tumbleweeds, and then the amaranth family it's more closely related to. So a little trivia just in case you're watching
Wow.
Jeopardy later. So what we did was I figured we'd go with the quinoa. Quinoa is also nice and light and fluffy.
Yeah.
You know, this is the time of year we don't need warm and cozy anymore. We need things that are light and summery or springy, if that's a word.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with that word.
We'll make them up.
Yeah, light, yeah. So quinoa tends to be lighter. It's not going to be something that weighs you down in the morning.
Right.
I use quinoa all day long. So, well, not every day, but you can do, have you ever had quinoa for breakfast?
I haven't had it for breakfast. I
Yeah.
usually cook it as a side dish for
Okay.
for dinner or something.
So a couple of things
Right.
about quinoa. Quinoa can be used in substitution for oats. So you can actually use it in the morning. I sometimes will saute up some apples or whatever fruit is in season, cook up some quinoa and put it together with a little cinnamon.
Ooh.
Very tasty. Love my cinnamon all year long. We also, you could do it for lunch, just like you said, as a side. For those that are vegetarian, quinoa is a great option, vegetarian or vegan, because it's actually a complete protein. So it's one of the only grains that actually gives you that complete protein in there,
Okay.
which is nice. So you could actually use it as a main dish, not just a side dish
Right.
if you wanted to. But you're feel free to
I'm going
throw
to
in
do
some
it after you
tofu
do
or
the
chicken.
salad.
Yeah. So what I did, so we're going to do a simple recipe here. So I took again the rainbow quinoa. We did about a cup of the grain we put about a cup and a half, a little more than that, of water in here. A lot of times when I make quinoa, I like to throw in some raisins, whether it's for breakfast or a side dish. It adds a sweet flavor to it. The trick with quinoa is you want to rinse the quinoa before you put it in the pot. So rinsing, a lot of times quinoa has a natural, like a bitter, like a little bitter component to it. Every now and then I forget to rinse it, and no one really notices unless you have a super quinoa fan out there that says to me, "Did you rinse your quinoa?"
I never knew to rinse it. I learned
Yeah.
something new today.
Always best to rinse it.
Yeah.
And then when you put it with the water, you want to put a little extra water just because those raisins will soak up that water at the end. So if you need to add more during the cooking process, you can always do that. So what is your favorite way? Do you make quinoa?
I do.
What's your favorite way to make quinoa?
I like it just the way you're doing here.
Okay.
Adding things in it.
Okay.
Like pepper, tomato, that kind of thing. But I also use it, I just eat it by itself.
Yeah.
Like it makes a great side to fish.
So what we're going to do today, it makes a great side for almost everything right now. Sometimes I'll make it in grill. I love grilling vegetables this time of year, you know, especially as we get into the summer, grilling your eggplant and squash and or your zucchini and yellow squash and tomatoes and things like that. And then putting them in with the quinoa. That's always a nice way to eat it as well. But today what we're going to do is we have quinoa with the raisins. Due to time purposes, I actually pre-cooked the quinoa. So you'll see it goes from being like a small little grain to nice fluffy quinoa, and there's raisins already in there that have soaked up some of the liquid. Sometimes quinoa is nice because you can serve it hot, cold, anywhere in between. Unlike oats are okay cold, but it's just not as warm and comforting. And again, oats are heavier, so we want to go lighter right now.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Did you put the raisins in there in the very beginning when you put the kiwi in with the water? Or you
Right
did
at
it
the
later?
end,
Right at the
because
end.
when I cook the quinoa, right at the end, I can kind of judge how much water is going to be left over.
Okay.
And so I put it in at the end to soak up that extra liquid. You could also, if there's not enough, that way too, if you've cooked the quinoa and it's got nice and fluffy, because you don't want water from the quinoa being drawn into the raisins before the quinoa is cooked. So this way you can kind of judge, do you need to add more water? Do you
Okay.
need to, do you have too much? Do you need to drain it first?
Okay.
So yeah. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the quinoa with the raisins. We're going to add in about a quarter cup. This is probably a little more of cucumbers. I like cucumbers. So
Okay.
we're going to go a little heavier on the cucumbers, but we're just doing some sliced cucumbers. I already pre-sliced it. We'll put that into the bowl. We're going to do a little bit of the scallions. You could do onions and scallions. You could do scallions or onions and no scallions. I like the flavor of scallions. And I'm a crier when it comes to onions. So anytime I can Avoid onions. I love onions. They're so good for you. Wonderful anti-inflammatory food along with like your garlics. But same with the scallions are part of the onion family. I made this demo for kids yesterday. They're about 8 and 9-year-old kids.
Mhm.
They ate this up, and I purposely took out the onions because originally it had onions and scallions, and I thought these kids are going to get scared if we do both in one recipe. So just taking one ingredient out, they still loved it. All right, so we're going to put some scallions in here. Lots of great color. You could do tomatoes also. We're going to do red pepper, which you could do tomatoes instead. I like the red pepper crunch. And again, we're adding more color. So I'm always a big fan of 3 colors at least on your plate. My mom taught me that rule.
Okay.
Mom, if you're seeing this, I'm doing it. See? I love adding colors. So we had the regular raisins. I just had some organic raisins from our little local Whole Foods type of store. We're going to do the salt and pepper. Right at the end, we'll add cilantro. What I love about this recipe, though, is you can really make it your own. If you don't like raisins, put in some other dried fruit or omit the fruit. If you don't like red pepper, put in tomato or she likes it hot.
Jalapeno
Right.
will do
So
it.
I wanted to cut the pepper in front of you though as it's slipping. I forgot my good knives at home. So what I usually do with the pepper, and don't worry, the top doesn't go to waste, that we use later. To make it easy for slicing, I usually cut the top off and the bottom off. Have you guys ever seen this trick with
No, do
peppers?
it.
All right. So we're not going to cut my finger off. All right. So we're going to cut the top and the bottom. Once in a while, if I'm serving it on a plate, I might use the little decorative part, especially if it's like in a little clover shape as the center of just to make it pretty. When I'm in a fancy mood, when I'm by myself, I just don't really care. So you're going to take the pepper. So you've cut the top and the bottom. We're going to take the center out. Sometimes we struggle with some of these vegetables, and most people, a lot of people avoid certain vegetables because they just don't know how to cut them properly.
Right.
Onions are one of those things that I've had more fights in the kitchen with onions than I think anything else, but I didn't know how to cut them properly. It wasn't until a friend of mine who's a chef came in the kitchen and she said, "What are you doing?" There were onions everywhere. She told me how to.
Oh, okay.
So you take the pepper, nice little circle now, or a clover now, just cut one side of it. And then what you do is you just take the knife and you can cut out the little pulp areas real easy. And then if you want to be fancy and julienne, your peppers, slice them into little thin strips. Now it's all ready for you. So it's,
oh, wow. Look at that.
yeah. So we're going to slice these up and I'll chop them. I'll just cut a few right now just so you can see. Also, if you cut them, if you hold the pepper like this on the side, and you slice down, it's a lot easier to cut than flat. You can notice the difference when you do that. All right. We only need about a half of the pepper. You could use the top for garnish or use the other part of the pepper for if you're having another side of veggies with a little dip or something. And then we'll cut these in and put that in there. It smells good, doesn't it? You smell the scallions over here?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to toss, they're going to be a little chunky in here. You can make them as small as you want, as chunky as you want. So we're adding all this nice color to the dish. Really pretty. All right, so I'm going to save those right now. We'll eat them later. And then we're going to put in some lemon. So lime. You can use lemon or lime. This is one of those things too. Take artistic license or cooking license. If you don't have lemons in the fridge, it's okay. Limes work perfectly well. I went with a little bit more of a Mexican tabbouleh. You could also do this with parsley instead of cilantro. We're doing cilantro with the lime juice and the peppers, but you could do a little bit more on an Italian take and do like tomatoes and lemon juice and maybe parsley or oregano or basil. So I love those recipes where you can change up whatever you want.
Right.
So we're going to put the lime juice. We're going to get a lot of nice lime juice in here to get the flavors going. A couple of tricks to lime, getting more juice out of this. Roll your limes first. Or as the ladies over at the Senior Center recently taught me, stick it in a microwave, which absolutely works if you want just to heat it a little bit, or a toaster oven if you're not a microwave fan. Just to heat it a little bit. Don't heat it too much. Be careful when you squeeze it afterwards so you don't burn your hand. All right, so we almost have this lime juice. keep forgetting what I'm using. All right, and then right at the end, we're gonna add some pumpkin seed oil. So I have the Stony Brook pumpkin seed oil, it's one of my favorites. We're just, again, going for a little change up. You can use regular olive oil, you can use whatever oil, you were talking about avocado oil.
It's one of my favorites.
Pumpkin seed oil is Tamier on fresh veggies.
Mm.
It is delicious. This is actually roasted pumpkin seed oil. And what I like about it is very high in omega-3s. There's been a lot of news about pumpkin seed oil. I know the coconut oil, there's a lot of talk about, but pumpkin seed recently.
Yeah.
I know people that drink pumpkin seed oil. It's not my thing to do. And take a little bit of white sea salt.
It's a little bit heavy.
What?
It's a little heavier.
It is, but they drink it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna add a little salt and pepper. And then we're gonna add some cilantro right at the end. We're gonna just chop that up and put that in there. I'm always a big fan of seasoning things with different like scallions and herbs before adding the salt to keep sodium content down.
Mm-hmm.
If you get something like this at a restaurant, a lot of times they're adding a ton of salt. So these are fun
Yeah.
things these are good things to make. When vegetables and fruit are in season, we don't need to add a ton of extra flavors or extra salt. All right. Same with fruits. When fruits are in season, we
Yeah.
don't need to add any sugar. For those out there that like doing the smoothies in the morning, we don't need to add extra sweetener in when we're doing the in-season fruits and
No.
fruits. All right, so we're gonna just add a little for color. So once this is all in, and you put more in, we're just demoing. You're gonna take this, and by the way, when you make that quinoa, use a fork to fluff it. Do you use a fork to
Yeah.
fluff your quinoa? It's pre-fluffed through me, so we don't need to do that here. But we're gonna just stir it up, and the oil just makes it so it doesn't get dry. Sometimes quinoa, if you sit it out for a little while, it can get a little dry tasting. But the oil kind of keeps it from doing that. Yeah. So she's off to get a spoon. She already wants to taste it. Put a little bit more of the oil in. If any of us have cilantro in our teeth after this, please forgive us. All right. Would you like to try some?
Here's your spoons.
All right. Taste testing time.
More off camera.
All right. Are you gonna have taste test on camera?
No guts.
I was gonna say, I know what, we were having a conversation about stuff either between our teeth to be camera ready, so we're gonna, oh wait.
And everything you did looks delicious. So.
Look at pumpkin seed oil. You can taste that.
I can't.
Yum.
That is delicious. Thank you, Rachel.
You are
That was
welcome.
wonderful. As
Thank you.
always,
Thank you.
you always bring us
I have
great
cilantro in
things.
my teeth.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much
thank
again
you.
for having me. Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
I have a quick question. You just started the new veggie challenge.
Yes,
Right?
we did. So for those that participated last time, so I own Reshaping Nutrition, and every now and then I like to do online challenges, especially this time of year when it's harder to get out to a class every week. I like to keep people motivated during the summer while they're out walking and moving more.
Mhm.
So last month we did a veggie challenge. It was a 28-day veggie challenge. And each week I give you a different assignment. So one week was to add a cup of veggies to each meal.
Right.
That was probably the hardest week for most people. It was just adding lots more veggies in. One week I gave everybody the challenge of picking 2 of their vegetables that maybe they don't like or they have never tried again because they didn't like it the first time, and trying it in a new way. I made everyone, or I challenged everyone to try a new vegetable that I gave them. So we're trying new things this month. So we started a new challenge on Monday, but it's not too late to participate.
Yeah.
If you want to participate, email me. It's probably the easiest way right now, since the online registration link has closed. Email me at Rachel, RACHEL, at Reshaping Nutrition, right here, .com. So again, Rachel at reshapingnutrition.com.
And Mary
Marketing.
and I did it when you did it.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was great. It was such a great way to come out of winter
Mm-hmm.
and really start kicking in the vegetables, because we eat healthy as it is, but it went
Yeah.
to a whole new level, and it was really great.
And
So,
and on the
enjoyed it.
Facebook, most of our I can do this even if you're not on Facebook. It's easiest to do it on Facebook. What's nice about Facebook is we have a group page that we have that the people, every part of the challenge is posting pictures
Mhm.
of what you're eating, or if you're not on Facebook, you can text me the pictures. That counts to get your points. But the pictures that were
They were
posted on Facebook were just gorgeous, that I was inspired. So hence the quinoa.
Right. Now, you have a new book coming up?
I have a book. Yeah, I'm working on a book right now. Actually, during my weight loss, I blogged my weight loss for about 18 months, 2 years. And we're now going through the process of taking, and it's been a couple years now, but it's time to put that into a book format. So we're actually going through and editing it, and it's mainly all written. We just have to kind of clean it up and get it out there, but we're hoping to get the book published by the end of the year.
Okay, so she'll be telling us about that later, and you'll be able to get the inside scoop on her new book when it's
Yeah.
ready.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Thank you
we want the
again.
scoop.
All right, I'll give you the scoop.
All right. So right now what we're going to do is we're going to show you a video. Mary and I have used this many times over the years in the trainings that we've done, both here in this country and other places as well. So it's one that always, I've seen it countless times, and I love it every time. And we thought that this would just kind of tie in some of what we're talking about today. So let me cue that up for you, and then stay with us, because after you see the video, we're going to come back for just closing comments.
It brings us back to the heart of who we are.
Yeah.
As humans. I want to see.
Now bring your computer in, if you would.
Did we remove this? Charlie, remove this.
Do your
Stay
computer,
tuned.
just-
Don't
Yeah, it's
go
not,
away.
Don't go
whatever
anywhere.
it is not clicking.
I might just eat in front of you right here. 'Cause this looks really good.
We
Fine,
always
just
have
wait.
technical things
Wait.
here. Just see if it's coming up on your
At least my
computer.
dad didn't show up on the video this time, right? For
Come
those that remember that last time.
It's all set up. So let's just see what's happening here. Okay. So for whatever reason, it's not
Let it be.
playing. And what I'll do is, for all of you who signed up for the webinar, if we can't get this to play, and this is another one of our technical glitches, then we will we'll email you out the link, because it really is a nice video. I want it to play too, but for some reason it's just not doing it.
Use
So
this.
okay, that's not going to help me.
It's just sit tight.
Okay.
Sit tight.
So
So
you want to come over and try this
We'll
while
stick it on the video.
we're waiting?
Move it up.
Okay. All right, so I'll tell you what, we're going to switch the camera back over, and we'll do our closing comments. And like I said, we will send you the video afterwards. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I wanted you to see it. I wanted okay. I'll see it. We wanted the audience.
Mira, can you grab the microphone?
Yes.
So like, guys.
Thank you. There's a.
We're still here. Hold on.
There we go. I think we're back where we were before.
With it?
There we go.
There we go.
Don't cut yourself out.
Okay, for whatever reason, we seem to be having a technical difficulty. So,
Oh, we tried this.
I know we did. We this is always, we do
Don't do
the
this.
test beforehand and make sure it all works, and then sometimes, even though you do the test when it works, you come back and once it's live, it does something else. So
It's kind of like parenting.
Yeah,
It's unpredictable.
exactly.
You do, you plant the seeds, you do
Kinda
the
like
best you
life in
can.
general,
It's
right?
the illusion of control when you're a parent.
Right.
Believe me.
So it's, for whatever reason, it's not going to play our video. We'll just send the link out to everyone.
Should we sing it?
Yeah, there you go.
Sing it.
Edie, when I told Edie the video we are going to use, she remembered the video, the
There's just
the
something-
words, the
Mhm.
music, everything. So
What are those?
I don't. It's just not doing it, Mira. It's we would like it to do it, but it's not doing it. So there's some glitch happening. But anyway, so any closing thoughts from our conversation?
Well, I just want to thank you for promoting and presenting such positive thought about big issues in the world. Parenting is always huge, and it deserves a lot of our attention. And I'm hoping that our discussion helps people feel more comfortable about what to do and how to do it. And I just want to thank you, ladies, and Rachel and Edie, for
Thank you.
having me here. It's been wonderful to sit with you for the afternoon and talk about these important issues.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you,
being
Joan.
here. Yeah, thank you, Joan.
And I think it is an important topic because we're planting seeds for the future.
Mhm.
And as I become a seasoned woman, is how I describe it. I'm not aging. My mentor says she's not aging, she's ripening. As I become a seasoned woman, I see the impact of the choices that we make and the seeds that we plant with the next generation, that we're not going to be here forever. And as responsible adults, we need to help make sure that the world is a safer place when we leave, that taking responsibility, modeling responsible behavior in children, modeling being citizens of the world, making everything we do matter. And this video that you wanted to show, the concept of it's in every one of us, it is. That every one of us has the ability to be loving, to be kind, to be successful, to be caring, to make a difference in the world. And when we show the children in our lives, whether they're our own children or somebody else's, then we tell them that there's hope for the future.
Yes.
Because a lot of children don't feel like there is. They feel, why bother? Why should I go to school? My school's only going to get shut up anyway. Why should I have a job? I'm only going to lose my job anyway. Why should I stay out of trouble? I see the adults in my life getting in trouble.
Right.
And that poem, children learn what they live. That one, that, if a child lives with this kind of experience, then this is how they're going to see the world. So if we want to share with the children that we encounter that life can be beautiful, and it's not airy fairy cosmic foo-foo stuff. It's really grounded, practical stuff.
Yeah.
So I thank you for for doing this, for planting the seeds, for creating the space for people like us to come and talk, to share with your your viewers, listeners, how to make the world a better place.
Right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
both.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
And so, if you want to give us your feedback on this, you can go to our website, www.graceflowindease, spell and out, graceflowindease.com. And in the blog section, I actually have an article in there that on the 3 graces. This was an article that I wrote for Sybil Magazine, and then I've posted it on the blog as well. And at the bottom, there'll be a place where you can leave comments and feedback. So we'd love to hear your thoughts about all of this as well. And let's just keep the conversation going. So thank you for joining us, Mary. I think you had.
Yes, I just wanted to offer this before I bid you adieu. Many, many years ago, I read a few words that have just stayed with me. And to my knowledge, there wasn't an author that that was attached to these words. I think I actually might have read it on a Christmas card, but it's this. It will take the best in each of us to make the best world for all of us.
Beautiful.
Nice. Yeah,
For sure.
so thank you. And we'll see you next month, the first Wednesday of each month at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And we hope to see you again. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.